Have you ever wondered what it truly takes to change the course of history? We often picture one heroic figure standing on a podium, their voice booming through the crowd, their words etched in time. But the truth is, behind every speech that moves mountains, behind every leader whose name we remember, there's another story, one that rarely makes the headlines. Today, we are going to dive into one of those stories. The story of a partnership that shaped the civil rights movement, not through fanfare, but through quiet, relentless strength. This is the untold love story of Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King. And trust me, it's not just a love story, it's a story of resilience, sacrifice, and two people bound by a shared dream bigger than themselves. Close your eyes and picture this: the Alabama sun beating down on fields in the late 1920s, cicadas humming in the distance, and a little girl named Coretta Scott running barefoot through tall grass. She was born in 1927 in Marion, Alabama, a place where segregation wasn't just a set of laws, it was a way of life. Her father was a farmer who also operated a sawmill, and her mother was a talented singer who filled the home with music. From an early age, Coretta's world was split between hardship and hope. She picked cotton alongside her siblings, but at night she dreamed of stages and symphonies. Music wasn't just a hobby for her, it was an escape, a way to imagine a life beyond the limitations imposed by Jim Crow. Coretta excelled academically, graduating at the top of her class. She attended Antioch College in Ohio, a bold choice for a young black woman at the time, where she experienced both opportunity and racism. Antioch was progressive, but the world outside wasn't ready for someone like Coretta. Still, she persevered. And when she moved on to study voice at the prestigious New England Conservatory of Music, she carried with her not only her ambition to become a professional singer, but also an emerging passion for activism. Now, let's shift the scene to Atlanta, Georgia, in 1952. Martin Luther King Jr., a young Baptist minister, is carving out his own path after completing his PhD in theology. He's charismatic, intelligent, and deeply committed to social justice. But even he doesn't yet know just how far his calling will take him, or who will be by his side. Their meeting feels almost cinematic. A mutual friend suggests that Martin meet Coretta, describing her as a woman with both beauty and brains, an artist with a social conscience. Martin calls her on the phone, and from the very first conversation, sparks fly, not just romantic sparks, but intellectual ones. They talk about everything: faith, philosophy, the role of music in healing the human spirit, and their shared vision of a just and equal America. When they finally meet in person, Martin is struck by her grace and determination. She's not just a preacher's wife in waiting, she's a partner, an equal, someone with her own dreams and convictions. They marry in 1953 in the garden of Coretta's family home. In a quiet but radical gesture, Martin insists that the word obey be removed from their vows. From the very beginning, he sees her as a partner, not a subordinate. And that decision sets the tone for everything that follows. Fast forward to December 1955. Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus, igniting a movement that will change the nation. Martin becomes the reluctant leader of the Montgomery bus boycott, and suddenly the Kings' lives are thrust into the spotlight. Coretta, barely out of her honeymoon phase, finds herself in the middle of a firestorm, literally. Their home is bombed while she and their baby daughter are inside. Can you imagine that? Holding your child in your arms as glass shatters and smoke fills the room? But Coretta doesn't break. She doesn't falter. Instead, she becomes even more resolute. And here's what most people don't realize: while Martin was leading rallies and giving speeches, Coretta was building the backbone of the movement. She organized fundraisers through her music, performing at concerts to support the cause. She opened their home to strategy meetings, turned their living room into a war room for justice. She was a mother, an activist, and a pillar of strength, all at once. As the movement grew, so did the dangers. Threatening phone calls became a daily reality. FBI surveillance, constant harassment, the looming fear of violence, it was unrelenting. Yet, Coretta carried herself with grace. She didn't just stand behind Martin, she stood beside him. In 1961, while pregnant, she participated in the Freedom Rides, defying those who told her to stay home. She visited South Africa in the early 1960s to protest apartheid, a bold move for any activist, let alone a woman with 4 young children. And then there was Selma. 1965, the Edmund Pettus Bridge becomes a symbol of brutality and courage. After Bloody Sunday, Coretta steps up once again, leading hymns for the wounded and demanding justice from the press. Her voice, once trained for opera houses, becomes an instrument for freedom songs echoing through jail cells and marches. But their partnership wasn't without strain. Imagine living a life where every day feels like a battlefield, where the cause always comes first and family moments are stolen in between arrests and rallies. Coretta longed for more time with Martin, but she understood the weight of his mission. And Martin? He leaned on her like no one else. In private letters, he called her his beloved partner, his constant. He once said, "I could not do what I do without you." And he meant it. Then, April 4, 1968. Memphis, Tennessee. A single gunshot shatters the dream. Martin Luther King Jr. is gone at just 39 years old. The world mourns. Riots erupt. But in the eye of the storm stands Coretta, grieving, yes, but unyielding. Just 4 days after his assassination, she leads the march he had planned to support striking sanitation workers. Can you imagine the strength that took? To walk head high while your heart is breaking. Coretta could have retreated. No one would have blamed her. But instead, she stepped fully into the role of leader. She established the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change, turning their home into a living memorial and an educational hub for generations to come. For nearly 2 decades, she fought tirelessly to make Martin Luther King Jr. Day a national holiday, facing resistance every step of the way. But she didn't stop until 1983, when President Ronald Reagan signed the holiday into law. Her activism didn't end there. Coretta became a global voice for human rights, speaking out against apartheid, advocating for women's equality, championing LGBTQ+ rights, and calling for peace during the nuclear arms race. She traveled the world, carrying not only Martin's message but her own, a message of courage, compassion, and nonviolence. When Coretta passed away in 2006, tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. But perhaps the most powerful testament to her life is this: Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed of justice, and Coretta made sure that dream didn't die with him. She turned grief into purpose, pain into power, and partnership into progress. So, what can we take from their story? It's more than history, it's a lesson in love, resilience, and shared vision. Behind the podium, behind the "I have a dream" speech, was a woman who believed just as fiercely, fought just as hard, and carried the torch long after the world moved on. If this story moved you as much as it moved me, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to survive the shows, and tap the bell so you never miss another episode of our Hidden Partnerships series. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What inspired you most about Coretta Scott King? Her artistry? Her leadership? Or her unwavering strength in the face of unimaginable loss? Let's keep this conversation going, because these aren't just stories from the past, they are blueprints for the future. Thank you for watching and listening. Until next time, remember this: behind every voice that changes history, there's another voice, steady, strong, and just as vital, guiding the way.